Research says that women contemplate an attempt to leave at least 7 times before they actually do.
I was with him for 10 years. I was abused since I was 17 years of age.
That was about 6 to 7 years.
And I was in it for 3 months.
It was physical, emotional, financial, and spiritual too. People think rape is not for married people, but you can be a rape victim while you are married. Sex is an everyday constant thing. So if you don't consent for something, you've been beat up, you are crying, you are locked somewhere, and all of a sudden he starts having sex with you, that's rape. When you give up on yourself, you give up on life, and you just, all you feel, all you want is death. It's both emotional, mental, and spiritual. You just lost hope. I'm a refugee, so when somebody continuously reminds you that you are nothing without me, you're a nobody, obviously you do feel it.
When I was 16 years old, I started dating. I actually did not want to get into a relationship with that man at that time. So I started sleeping with him. He started requesting for sex almost every day, and he expected me to go to his house every day after school.
I was abused mentally, physically, financially, emotionally.
Initially, it was emotional abuse, but the latter part, the physical abuse set in. Because of my daughter, he emotionally abused me because he knew very well that I had nowhere to go and I needed a father for my child. So he continually abused me emotionally with very hurting words. He wasn't responsible. He wasn't there for us, and a whole lot. At a point, I took a decision that this wasn't right. So when I tried to revert, then the physical abuse set in. He could hit me and my eyes will swell. And then I'll just cover it up that I fell or there was a minor accident in the kitchen or something.
So when I went to campus, my lips were swollen, my cheeks were swollen, my gum was swollen. And so during that period, I was unable to study. And on one particular paper, he showed up at like my department. I was panicking, so I just like rushed upstairs because I knew he couldn't come. Then right before the paper, I just like broke down in tears.
Umana ndinkanza zomenyedwa komaso zondibisira mbiri yanga kundunena kuti ndinoipa pankhanza zomenyedwa apa ndinamenyedwa ndi mwana amene ali wankazi nzanga ngati ine ndikamamona ngati step mother. Now mama kuti no bambo a nyumba amene alamuna ngaine atetezere endi nkhaniyo inayonena kuti mwana wawo ndiolakwitsa momoti amutetezere zikuonesa kunena kuti mwana uja sanafune kumutetezera iwo sanathandizira kunditani kundimenya. Pa nkhani yakuipa ndionena kuti chifukwa cha zimene zinachitika ine ndimayankhula chilungamo koma chifukwa cha kusachimvesesa amafotokoza zoti ndine oipa ndipo sanaonepo mkazi oipa ngati ndani ngati ineyo. Nde ine ndimaona kuti anandipisira mbiri yanga fa kuipa kumene ananena ndine pamaso kutheka sokwa wanakafotokoza zitizo zomwezo. Ineyo zitandichitikira zinandikhudza kwambiri. Wani kunakhala ngati kundiphera ufulu wachikhalidwe komanso kunakhala ngati kuti pena pake ndikusowa mtendere wa mbanja kumbali ya ana thandizo likusowa si mmene tinkakhalira poyambayi ndilochita kugwedeza kwakukulu ndimapanga ndekha china chilichonse ndimapanga ndekha ine munthu wamayi kuseza kuti iwo udindo wawo anautani kodi anauthawa.
The signs of a toxic relationship vary from one relationship. One of the things that are very control of another person, where a person does not have their freedom. They cannot live their lives without being followed and watched all of the time. And then the other one is silent treatment. You know, other people will be like, I didn't say anything, I was just quiet. Yet they are being passive aggressive by not speaking to a person for a particular period of time. And then we also see situations where someone will look like they're joking. They will always be saying some certain types of jokes about another person's life, about another person's it could be clothing, it could be their looks or things like that. And other things is if there is withholding of intimacy, if there is withholding of resources, and at times there is physical violence. Living an abusive relationship is not easy at all. One, it can be a very risky thing to do, because let's remember always that when we talk abuse or violence, we are talking about an issue of power and control. So if a person is controlling and they have power over another, it is risky to try and leave that kind of a relationship, because if you are taking away my power and my control, I feel powerless. I feel like I'm not being able to do the things that I'm used to doing in terms of controlling. So until I find another victim, it can be a problem. And the other thing about living is that a lot of women find themselves economically dependent on their partners, and because this is the person who puts bread on the table, who puts a roof over my head, where am I going to do and how am I going to do life if I leave them? We also see women stay for purposes of children, as most of them say.
Since he's a local and I'm a refugee, he was my source of the residence permit, the citizenship. There was that little refugee child in me who said, so this is it? Are we always going to be nobodies? Even now that you're old enough to take a decision, you've decided to be a nobody.
A few days later, I moved to another district where I got a job as a maid. I worked for a few months, but still the environment was not good for my son. I found out that I was pregnant. It turned out that I was already pregnant by the time I left my husband. Life was hard. A few days later, I moved to another district where I got a job as a maid. I worked for a few months, but still the environment was not good for my son. I found out that I was pregnant. It turned out that I was already pregnant by the time I left my husband. Life was hard. One time, I told the guy that I wanted to break up with him, but he told me that he will marry me, and he threatened that if he ever hears that I'm seeing another man, he was going to kill him. So I stayed. When I got into college, I was still dating him and I was still miserable. He was still forcing himself on me most of the times.
Living itself is not safe, as we've already said, because you are taking away somebody's power and control. And once one leaves, it doesn't mean that the other person has stopped wanting to have control and power. We have lots of situations where the person just shows up at their ex's doorstep and say, I'm the man of the house, I'm here, or I'm the whatever person, and they want to still continue exercising control. So this is why when a person reaches out for support, it's important to start talking about a safe way of living so that they are not at risk of losing their lives. A person who who is having power and control feels like they don't have anything to lose if they killed or whatever. This is why we are experiencing the kind of things that we see now, that people are being killed and being raped, but they are ex-spouses. So it's important to come up with a safe exit plan. They are actually teaching children that conflict resolution is done through violence, because children that are in that kind of an environment, they learn how to, the only thing that they learn is how to resolve conflict through violence. So it can be a very difficult thing if we keep children there. Actually, research that was done in Botswana showed that 97% of men that were experiencing intimate partner violence, and 97%, again the same percentage, of men that were perpetuating or perpetrating violence, intimate partner violence, had childhood experience of violence, and 92 and 94% for the same for women. So we can see that there's a very close correlation between experience and perpetration of violence with what people experience in childhood. And the other thing is just everything, I mean, from that perspective of experiencing it at home to every other setup that a child grows up in that says that violence is the right way to resolve conflict. It becomes very difficult for people to live, because that is the normal. So in other ways, because violence is normalized in our communities, it becomes something that people learn to live with in all settings. And when I say all settings, I'm talking church settings or religious settings, the traditional settings, the home, and everything else. When we look at women who are economically viable and they still stay, and at times they're the ones that are actually providing for the family, let's remember that we are talking intimate partnership. We are talking emotional partnership. We are talking people being bonded at all levels, so that trying to get out of that becomes a very difficult thing. So research actually has shown that even women who have everything, when we are socialized into handing over power when we get into intimate relationships. So when women get into intimate relationships, it doesn't matter what they have, whether they have more power, whether they have a higher position, whether they have more money, they will hand over. This is why, if I can give you an example, if we are going shopping and my partner does not have money anyway, I will take the money and give it to them, so that when we get to the shop, they can pay, because they are the men. They are the ones that should provide. We have both been socialized into that. So having a position of power does not change the fact that I could be violated. So in other words, violence does not know boundaries. First and foremost, it's a shame to leave a marriage, because it's been made to feel like if you leave, you are a failure. Both our traditional setup and our religious setup tell us that you are supposed to be a strong person. You are supposed to win it all. So it is difficult when also I am told as a woman that, as a wise woman, people will say that all roofs leak, which I don't believe. I believe that there are roofs that don't leak. Secondly, I believe that even the ones that are leaking, they don't leak the same way. So when we say people should not air their dirty linen in public, when we say you need to keep the secrets of your home by putting that little blanket over my shoulders and putting a very big safety pin that says that I must be a woman. When we say all those things, is it possible for us to say, but there are some things that you cannot keep because they have a bearing on your mental and your physical health? So it's very important that we start to really think about and to have very tough conversations as communities about what are the things that we want to say to our younger women when they are getting married. Culture and religion are very strong foundations on which marriage and social life is based. So that's why I keep saying, while we do the Molao, while we do the law, while we educate people on the law, we cannot leave out conversations in communities between community leaders, religious leaders, and society, to talk about what are the toxic aspects of our laws and our religious beliefs that we need to get rid of, so that we can socialize people into a new way of doing life. When people leave, when people try to leave, the question is, what have we said about leaving? That's the first thing. And a lot of people say, when I got married, I didn't sign up for divorce. Nobody wants to get divorced. Everybody wants to be in a marriage that's functional. But we don't tell people that marriages sometimes are dysfunctional. We haven't even had a test of how this person we are getting married to grew up. We don't ask those important questions. We do things like, which relationship, how many did you have? I mean, those things may not matter that much. They might matter, but they may not matter that much. We ask things like, we might talk about, can we go and do an HIV test? After doing an HIV test, how is that? It's very important, but is it going to save me from a person who grew up in a very toxic environment and believes that violating another person's rights is not wrong?
I remember he slept out. So just like a normal couple, we fought about it. The next morning we fought about it when he came back home. Then he told me, this is why I can't do the permit for you. So I wondered, is this how my life is going to be? Do I have to put up with everything that he brings to the table because I want the residence permit? So I decided, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to leave, not just for me, for my children.
The breaking point was my youngest child was sick, and I needed money for the hospital. Initially, when I got pregnant with that child, he told me to abort. So everything about that child irritated him. So on that fateful day, when I asked him for money, he told me he doesn't have. And I followed him around the house that I needed money. The child is sick. What do you expect me to do? And he was throwing tantrums, and he was like, I don't have it. Do you want me to go steal and all that? So he tried going out, and I held his shirt. He turned, and then he slapped me. He beat me blue black. And at that point, I couldn't take it anymore. So he left the house. I put myself together, borrowed money from someone, took my child to the hospital, and he was better. That was when I decided to leave for good.
So he contacted me in December, towards New Year, and then I was working at that time. So that day, someone was added to our old students group. Then I got a call. So when I picked up, it was him. And he was like, I shouldn't like hang up. He has something to say. So I allowed him to talk, and he was like, he has joined my class group. He's going to tell everybody that I'm a prostitute, and that's why we broke up. So they shouldn't listen to everything. And that was my like SHS old students group. So I didn't understand why he would want to embarrass me that way. Then that's when I noticed that someone had been added to the group, and it was his number. So I started panicking. Then one girl from my SHS, she knew where I was at that time. So I don't know who told him where I was, but I think it was her. So he came there, he just like appeared there, and I got scared, so I ran out. He followed me on the streets, and he started dragging me, that he's taking me back, that do I think I can just like leave him just like that? Now nobody ever just like leaves him. So he started like, then that day he slapped me 2 times on the streets. So I started like crying, then when he died, I just like fell to the ground, put me in the sky, and he had my phone. So he drove me all the way to his house. That evening, he slept with me till morning, and he was taking videos of me. So the next morning, he finally dropped me off at home. I remember that morning, my sister knew there was something wrong with me because I didn't even want to talk to anybody, but then I couldn't tell anybody too because I didn't even know how to even say, and I couldn't go back and tell my counselor because she had already told me, and then that would have been like the 3rd time, but the 3rd time was nowhere it wasn't my fault. But I don't know how I explained to her that I don't even know how he found me over there for him to like take me away like that. So
one night, when my son was just 11 months old, my husband came home late and started beating me. I fled in the middle of the night with my son, and I wasn't sure where I was going. I used shortcuts to get to town, and I called my friend, who came to pick us up and took us to her house. I explained to her what had happened, and she advised me to go back to my husband, but I refused. One day, my lecturer talked about sexual harassment and women's body rights. He said that women have to make their own choices and decisions concerning their body. That opened my eyes. That's when I realized that my boyfriend had been abusing me, so I decided to break up with him. When I told him about my decision to break up with him, he got angry and he started beating me. I got a chance to run and he started chasing me. I ran to a certain house, and when the owner of the house asked me what I was running from, I told her a man I didn't know was chasing me. The woman offered to accompany me home. The man did not follow us. After that incident, I started avoiding him. I blocked his contacts, but he kept calling me on new numbers until I bought a new SIM card and changed my number.
I got a lot of support from the local pastor. The first time I met her, I was actually thinking about committing suicide for the 2nd time. And this time I knew I wasn't going to lose. This time I wanted to do it and win. So she continuously came to my house, giving me emotional and spiritual help. I remember I would literally lock her out. No, I don't want to see you. But she never gave up on me. I also got help from Molao Matters. I didn't really know the legal part of how I'm going to get out of this marriage, what is going to happen. But then I got free legal advice from Molao Matters, which I really didn't expect. It gave me hope to fight.
When I made up my mind to leave, my first challenge was finance. Accommodation was the biggest challenge. That where do we go from here? Because going back to my mom was no. Because I got pregnant as a teenager, I lost most of my friends and I couldn't go to them for help. So emotionally, I was keeping to myself. There was no one to talk to. and I needed money to cater for the children, to get accommodation, put them in school and all that. So money was my biggest challenge, but then we made it.
So I went through intensive counseling. After this event, it got to the police, so he was arrested and we took that statement and everything, but he still managed to pay the police off. So all we got was a restraining order. And I got support from the Pearl Safe Haven, and then they have a therapist and a counselor. I used to get panic attacks because I went to a state of depression and I had to see the psychologist. So anytime I'm having like such episodes, they are the ones I reach out to. So once in a while, they'll just like call me, check up on me. I would go over then do something fun.
I later decided to go back to my parents, and when I did, I apologized to them and they forgave me and took me back. They took care of me and my son, and after I had given birth to my second child, they sent me back to school. I managed to complete my secondary education and enrolled into college where I have just graduated. I also started doing several businesses and I'm a successful businesswoman right now. I don't depend on a man to provide for my needs and that of my two sons.
Upangiri yonna batsidwa chabe chionera kuti chikondi chimatseka m'mapirikaniro. Ndikati upangiri sinapasidwe ndikunama. Upangiri napasidwa kuchokera kwa azichimwene yanga. Unena kuti ndi mmene takuchitira alamuwa chemwe ali simuli pabanja sakukufunani. Koma zioneka kuti niyo mukwafuna koma iwo sakutani kodi sakukufunani. Kuli bwanji mungodzisiya. Foma petaki ndi zinthu zoti muthokhala nazo pa mavuto.
The support that is needed in addition to what is already existing, like psychosocial support, which is counseling, like helping someone to plan where they are going next. One of the most important things is economic support and ensuring that people have housing, people have shelter. If people are staying in abusive relationships because they are wondering where they are going to go, where they are going to stay, they are wondering what they are going to eat and what they are going to feed the children, then it means we need to be proactive in ensuring that at least we have a halfway home where we can keep them while we are also helping them to be on their feet economically. From the time they decide to leave until, for quite a bit, others will need more, but at most about 3 months to 6 months, someone might need to continue receiving psychosocial support, because remember, they are dealing with a whole array of issues of having left. They are looking at themselves as a failure. They are thinking, you know, everybody is asking them. People want to know what happened, where is your husband, what happened to your marriage, how are you going to raise the children? You know, there are so many things that are coming, and so someone needs to get to that point where they are strong enough to handle whatever is coming their way. So psychosocial support really never stops, and it can go, like I said, for 3 months, but someone can come back a few months later and say, I'm not coping, because then you are used to staying with someone, you start to be lonely, you need someone and you're not sure if it's too early or is it too early to start seeing another person, because also nature is speaking its own language, you know, so there is a whole lot of things. So psychosocial support can never ever stop. And then when I decide to move on, which might mean I want to be in another relationship, I also need to have dealt with the baggage of where I was coming from. Otherwise, I'm carrying it into the next level, and every time this other person makes a move, I'm thinking about where I'm coming from. It's very important for any level of society to have these tough conversations. I believe that if the society says, let's not let us see violence as violence, and let's encourage people to leave if it is not safe for them to stay. I believe that, it has to start with the leadership, actually. If the community leadership, in Botswana, we have a saying that the word of the chief should be listened to and be adhered to. So if the chiefs could have a totally different conversation with their communities and actually say, when violence is happening, don't wait. If we can internalize the pain that families that are losing their loved ones are going through, if we can internalize the pain that women who are in abusive marriages are going through, I think it will be easier. I keep saying I do not want to find myself wishing that it could happen to their children. It should never, because violence is violence. It should never happen to anyone. So they need to internalize the pain of the people that they live with before it even comes to them. So those conversations in communities, those conversations in families. And the one thing that I keep saying everywhere I go, and I'll say it here today, is if you have children as a parent, I always say sit alone, close your eyes, envision the future of your children. How do you want them to live with their intimate partners when they are adults? That which you are envisioning in their future, leave it now. Because our homes are life schools. This is where children live. And you can't tell them, don't beat your wife when you are beating your own. You just have to do it and they will learn and take it.
When you are in an abusive marriage, you're not mentally stable. Anything can happen. You can either decide to kill the man and you go to jail, or maybe you commit suicide, you die. You see, some married women will say, I want to be in it for my children. I want to stay in this marriage because of my children. But you cannot raise kids from a mental hospital. And neither can you raise them when you come back from there. People won't trust you. You cannot raise children from the grave. You cannot raise children from prison or inside prison. Even if when you come back from prison, people still will not trust you with your own children. So sometimes just face your worst fear. Just pack up, be selfish and think about you, not just for you, for the future of the children too.
I'll just say that the first time your boyfriend should insult you, you should just leave, because it always starts from the insults. And if you see he has anger issues, then you should especially watch how he treats other people around him, because one day it's going to be you. So you should just watch out for those signs.
I would like to encourage women who are trapped in abusive marriages and they don't want to walk away because of kids. You deserve so much more. You deserve to be happy, and you don't have to look down on yourself. I was courageous enough to walk out with my 11-month-old baby, and I don't regret that decision. I hate that my ex-husband is now married to another woman, but that doesn't bother me because I'm free. The woman he married is even going through worse than what I went through. So I'm happy I walked out. As women, we should not allow men to abuse us. Walking out of that relationship was the best decision I've ever made. I am free and happy now. I now have peace of mind. I was able to concentrate on my studies and I graduated. I know I wouldn't have been able to do that if I had stayed with that man.
Enedo langizo amba ndonena kuti amayi onse amene ali ndi ulumali asaziyang'anire pansi. Pamene iwo akumana ndi nkhanza akuyenera kuti azituluse poyera. Fatikanena kuti nkhanza situnena za m'banja mokha, ngakhale za abale ako amene ukukhala nawo. Atha kupangira nkhanza komabe iwe nkumazifinyo ne akuti mwina ndikatera ndikalipira mwina andipanga mwakuti ayi akuyenera azuluse poyera kuti no anthu ena akufuna kwabwino kuti angathe kwathandiza athandize. Komanso pali nkhanza zina zimene zimatuluka kwa azimayi amene ali ndi ulumali, mwina chifukwa cha kusazitulusa kapena manyazi kuti ndikatere ndiye kuti zinthu zizitani sizikhala bwino. Azikhala socialize ndi anzawo kumakhalapo nthawi inayo machezako ndi anzawo osati uko sindipita mwakuti chifukwa mtimisonkhanoso munthu umathaso kumva zambiri kusiyana ndi kuti wina akayende akakumvere koma wekha umathaso kumva to zakuti zija kutanthauza mwakuti zakuti zija kutanthauza mwakuti.
One thing I would also say is we should always find something doing. If you have a job that is able to cater for you, you wouldn't rely on any person, be it man or woman, to accommodate you or to support you or whatever. Yes. So for the future, I think we have a voice as women. Yes, we have a voice. We are strong, but then sometimes we refuse to see how strong we are. We don't even know our worth. Yes, sometimes we think we are beneath. But then today I have learned that we really have a voice. We are strong as women, and we can do anything as long as we want to do it. We can.
If you are in an abusive relationship, you need to think about your life and how staying is actually helping. And then find someone, an organization, a counselor, a psychologist who can help you make a safety plan to live. And know that there is life after violence. That smile can come back if you leave early enough. So it's not the end of the world. And everything else that the abuser has said, there are things like nobody's ever going to look at you. I did you a favor and all that. It's not true. Think about the life you lived before you met the person. What makes it different when you leave them? So take care of yourself. As hard as it is, make the tough decision. Walk out in a safe way.